All right, we are live July 28, 2020. And Anthony, I'm excited because we're going to be talking about great leadership today, aren't we?
You said live, and I just started singing, "Staying alive, staying alive."
We're going live. Oh yeah. All right. Hey Anthony, how you doing? What do you think about my brand new palatial estate that's not really my house behind me?
I really like it, but can we not like spend 20 minutes on it? Can we just say, "Yeah, I like it," and move on?
It's too bad because I'm looking for great content here, and anything around my background seems to be playing well with the audience. All right, so everybody out there, as you're joining the show, let us know what you think of this background. We'll try different backgrounds throughout the week. But Anthony, more important, I'm really looking forward to talking about leadership right now. I'm feeling like now more than ever, strong leaders are important.
Well, when you're looking at the gas meter on your car, and you're like, "Okay, half a tank, I'm good." Then you look at a quarter tank, it's like, "Oh, I'm good. I'll stop in another 20 miles." And then all of a sudden, you're on the road,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh my God, I forgot gas!" And like the exit's a mile away, and you only got a half tank of gas or a half a mile to go, and you take your foot off the gas, and you're just trying to cruise to the gas station. Been there?
Yeah. Oh, we've all
Yeah.
been there.
So we're on we've got a mile to go and only half a tank of gas in leadership. So everybody's tired, everybody's been through this, and we need some good positive leadership.
Yeah, we sure do. And we've got joining us Greg Aden, who's a great leader in the business, and he does leadership training and all that. Plus, he works for a major hotel company. Of course, we got Chris Green, the CEO of Chesapeake Hospitality, backstage, ready to pitch in as well. Yeah, it's Tuesday.
Oh, hey, Chris, today's Tuesday. Yeah, but he's so busy now. He's a big CEO.
I know. It's like we're going to be able to say, hey, we knew him when, right? Because he gets to do fun things like go places occasionally.
He looks very CEO-y when he's wrapped around the hotel.
Yeah, he did. I really like the new hotel that they got in Gettysburg. That was kind of
hotel looks good on you, Chris.
But speaking about being places on site, on Thursday, we're going to be broadcasting from Mohegan Sun. So that'll be a lot of fun.
I'm really excited about that. And I want to see movement. I want to see travel. I want to see what's going on out there. I wasn't sure I was going to talk about this, but we'll talk about it. We can say positive. There's a hotel that is near and dear to my heart that I literally cried last night when I found out for two reasons. We cried. One, Southern Hotel on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, which is a great hotel, pretty famous hotel. And it's like a 4-star hotel. It's not a mid-scale hotel. It's a beautiful hotel, great ownership. And unfortunately, they've had to basically give their hotel to the government. So they're repurposing it right now for basically a homeless shelter, and the people in there are people that were basically on methadone. So good news is there's people that have a safe place to stay and not be on the streets and get COVID. On the other hand, it's a great hotel, and I wish that there were other options in the city to give options to these people that are in need, because there are a lot of people in need. But to get that hotel and to put it in the hands of the government, I'm afraid what it's going to come back to look like. But great ownership. They do great hotels in New York City, and I'm sure that they're going to do a great job when it comes back. But just that we're there in that place was made me very sad last night.
Yeah, it really does. There's a lot of challenges hoteliers are having out there. But I mean, if you're going to look at the positive side, at least they're able to generate some income, right? And they aren't going to be suffering the fate that a lot of other hotels in New York seem to be suffering right now. But I don't really want to today, Anthony, focus on that negativity, because we're going to be talking about great leadership. It's negative to me in the sense that there's this overall weight that's everybody's feeling, right? With the state of the hotel industry. And when you hear stuff like that, I mean, we have to talk about it, but at the same time, it's just kind of sad. I'm kind of mourning the loss of what we used to have.
So you know what? I still have something that's important to me. See this tie? Let's talk about the history of my tie. This was one of
all right, everybody in the comment section is talking about my background or Anthony's ties more exciting.
This was the first tie I bought for my TV show back 10 years ago, and I bought it at Century 21, as we spoke about. It's a in a regular store, a it would be very expensive. And I got a really great deal for like $75 on this tie. And I haven't worn it in like 5 or 6 years. So I'm wearing it for you.
Excellent. And mind you, Century 21 is not compensating us for any endorsements, but I do want to say they are a great store. You can go check them out. There's one on Long Island, but the one next to Ground Zero in Manhattan is the place. You could get insane discounts. People used to come over from overseas when they came to the United States, buy an empty suitcase, fill the whole thing up, and then go home with great deals.
I was in Europe and I went to the first tie store. I was doing a show called 5 Star Secrets, and producers bring me and say, "Hey, get any tie you want." So I find the tie at $700. So I take the tie, I go to the producer, and I go, "This is the tie I want." She goes, "It's $700. I go, "We don't have that in the budget. I'll put it back." She goes, "No, don't worry. We'll figure it out into the budget." Do you know I didn't buy the tie? And I regret it to this day. Not regret, because I don't like the word regret, but I should have just like split it with them, paid half of it, just so I have the tie of the first tie store in the history of. It was the first tie store ever. It was like this company invented ties, and I didn't buy it. So that was the history of the tie. There is a $700 tie that somewhere in Europe that has my name on it. So if you
I could never imagine spending $700 on an item of clothing, except maybe a good suit.
I may have done that once, and I may and Travel Channel gave me a budget for a show in Hawaii. I was doing 2 or 3 shows, and they gave me I went into Saks. Yeah, one shirt.
Yeah, right.
Over.
Yeah.
The opening of that show in Hawaii? I look good, but that was my whole budget.
I can picture you there negotiating with the people at Saks. How much? Just one sock. I don't need both of them.
No, let me tell you what happened. I was walking around, and every time I had a show that I couldn't wear a suit and tie, I used to get a little crazy in my head because it's like it has to wear all day, 4 days. Sometimes I have to wear it because of continuity issues. I had to get a good shirt. I had to make sure it looked good, and kind of like I'm still dressed up, right? But I'm in Hawaii, so there's a lot going into this purchase. So I go around looking for a shirt. All of a sudden, a shopper shows up. And he's going to bring me around the store. Brings me around the store, shopping around the store. I've never had a shopper in my life. No one ever picks my clothes for me. And he gives me like 30 shirts. I don't like them. Finally, he gives me this one shirt. I put it on. I go, done. Takes it, brings it to the cashier. And the cashier says, $100. And I was like, what? And they're like, yes. Right. And I just made a deal with myself at that moment. It's like, that's my budget. That's it. Done. I'm not buying any more clothes. I'll figure it out. And I wore that shirt for 4 days on set.
Right. So Kyle over here says, Banana Republic factory stores is where it's at for hospitality workers. I've got, what my strategy used to be is I had a job at the Gap back in my college days. And what I loved about that is they would give you outfits for like 50% off and all sorts of other crazy discounts. So I always liked that. But now Century 21.
You know what I like too? Cintas. Cintas has their own suit line, and I like their clothes. I have a couple of their suits I wear from time to time.
Oh, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. All right. So now that we've had some really great hot shopping talk, how about we talk a little bit leadership with Greg and Chris as well?
Well, you know what? Leadership is important, but I think we talk about branding, and your brand's important. And when you're doing a show and you've got to get it perfect, you got to get it perfect.
So let's do this.
Conversation.
I got an idea. I got an idea for a future show, maybe a Friday show. Why don't we get a fashion person on, and we could talk about personal branding through imaging and wardrobe and all of that kind of stuff.
How about you just talk to me and I'll teach you?
Oh, you've been trying to teach me, and I don't seem to be learning.
I failed. Actually, if you go to my YouTube channel and just put in Anthony Melchiori, how to tie a tie, there's a whole video about how to tie a tie, and my other little secrets of different things I do to make things look more interesting. To give you an example, on this suit, I don't have, what do you call it? I don't want to get up.
You definitely don't want to get up to reveal your probable shorts and stuff, right?
See this? There's no pocket. You know that layer that lays over your pocket? I have that designed out, or I cut it out. My tailor just cuts it out. So it's a clean line and just looks like a sharper suit. Anyway, let's go with the show.
Let's do it. Let's bring in our guests. All right. Welcome to the show.
You're welcome for that incredible conversation about ties and suits.
I mean, honestly, gentlemen, you could not have gotten a better lead-in to this fantastic segment. So I know you were fit to be tied back there behind stage. Sorry, a little dad humor for you. We all know our good friend Chris Green, CEO of Chesapeake Hospitality, but no one has met Greg Aden on this show before. Although a lot of you folks know Greg from not only Aden Leadership, but he's been around at some of the major hotel companies over the last couple of decades. So he's a person. And Greg, tell me if I'm wrong, that really you cut your teeth on the franchise side of the business. You really understand the dynamics of how the hotel business works. And then you found yourself creating more of that leadership point of view. So for the purposes of our conversation and understanding leadership, I don't think we could have had a better person than somebody who focuses on leadership, but has been in hospitality. So welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So
great to be here.
Yeah. So
Chris, were you fascinated with all the Thai talk?
Yeah, I learned a lot.
I'm sorry.
what was that? I totally missed that.
I said, Anthony asked me if I was fascinated with the Thai talk, and I said I learned a lot. I only have 6 ties left. I don't wear them very often anymore. They're going away, right, Greg?
Me neither. I haven't worn one in years. I was looking for something on how to tie your conversation into leadership, and give me a minute. I'm sure I'll come up with something.
I'm sure.
Actually, wait, hold on. The way you show up to
That's
your
right.
team, right? The way you show up, whether you're on time, the way you look, the way you present yourself, that you don't look tired, that you look fresh, that is everything, right?
Yes. And I would also say how you show up with your heart, whether you have a tie on or you're dressed like Chris or myself or Glenn. I personally would rather hear and feel what a great leader you are versus how sharp you're dressed. That's
okay,
just
hold on. Oh, I like this. I like when we start conversation where I'm going to argue with somebody. I love this.
Yeah.
So has he watched our show before? Okay, so
yes, I have.
That's just following up on our MMA conversation yesterday. Let's bring it in the ring.
If I show up in shorts and a polo shirt, right? My polo shirt's gonna be ironed. My shorts are gonna look good, and I'm gonna have nice shoes on, right? So
Yes.
I don't care what you wear. Like look how pretty Chris looks today with his little sweater and his little shirt. I mean, it looks great. So you don't have to wear a tie and a shirt. That's not the point. The point is appearance matters. Matter of fact, appearance matters before you say anything, because people are going to judge you the way you look, and then you're going to talk, and then they're going to forget the way you look. But if you show up like a slob and everybody else is sharp, they're just going to look at that guy who says he cares, but he can't even put his shirt on right.
I agree. That I would agree with Anthony, and for sure. I chose not to wear a T-shirt and a hat on backwards with sunglasses for that very reason.
Right, that's a good point. So,
But if you were, then maybe you could accompany Anthony to the poker table.
Yes.
So Chris, you were about to say something. Your mouth was half open.
No, I think obviously the cultural norms are changing on what well-dressed looks like, but I agree 100%. Whatever you got on, it needs to be well put together. And for me, and we know this and Greg is an expert at it, so he can probably speak more to it, but hiring managers, they make the decision in the first few seconds generally, and it's really about your countenance on your face, the way you present, the way you talk, your energy level, and of course, how well put together your selected outfit is. So it's real important.
Hey, Colleen, now that you have Anthony's ties, you could give out the ties to the gentleman you want to look good. So you've got that going for you. All right, Greg.
Why don't we let Glenn do his job? Go ahead, Glenn. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Glenn.
No, Greg, you were going to say something. Please continue.
No, you're going to introduce him.
I was just going to say first impressions are crucial for me as well. And what I look for in anybody I'm meeting for the first time is eye contact. Are they present? Are they here? Are they on their phone? Are they distracted? And whether I'm hiring them or I'm looking forward to collaborating with them, that's what I'm looking for. Are they present? Are they here? Are they humble? Are they willing to listen? And then I have a distinction I call interested versus interesting. I would rather have someone be interested in what the conversation is than worrying about trying to be interesting all the time. And I'm sure the four of us could sit here and relate to thousands of conversations we've had, and we've inside our minds, we're thinking, this person in front of me believes that they are king or queen. When are they going to ask me a question and bring me into the conversation? But they're so arrogant, they don't even know what that would look like. So anyway.
Yeah. No, I don't think that that's I don't think that that's important. I think it's critical. I think that I know I've learned personally when I was growing up, in this business, and I was in the military, and I remember Senior Master Sergeant Young saying to me, sitting me down and said, "Hey, Anthony, you're good at what you do. but you're not the most important person in the military. There's
Yeah.
other people around you. And he taught me the greatest lesson at that moment. Another guy who I fired said, hey, you can fire me, but you can't take my spirit. Realized I'm not the most important person. So it took me a couple of years to realize that. And I listened to hear and to feel, not to get on to my next topic. I'm still not perfect at it. I still do a bad job at it. I think Glenn's really good at it. Chris is really good at it. I think I use them as a touching stone to kind of get better at it. But it's something I've struggled with, and it's something I think most people struggle with.
Yeah, I agree. And being in conversations with people every day, I notice a little bit of that as well. There's that old adage: God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen twice as long as you speak. I think there's a lot of validity and truth to that. And I think the way that a good leader behaves, and gentlemen, you could tell me about this, is that you have to do a lot of listening and really hear what that person has to say. My wife and I around the house, we call that active listening as opposed to passive listening, where you could tell that you're engaged in the conversation, you ask great questions, and you continue to make it about the individual, not about yourself. Chris, what do you think about that? And then we'll go to Greg.
I mean, listening is critical. A lot of times leaders get pushed up through the ranks and they believe their own, they believe their own hype. And we as you spend more time in leadership position, you realize that you're only as good as who you're surrounded by and who's helping you to get there, because you're not getting there on your own. Mm-hmm. So if you don't listen and you don't have to agree with every idea, but you need to hear every idea so that you can make an informed decision. And I think that's one of the skills that people learn over time, is to really sit down and even consider very difficult and opposing opinions to help form your own, because that's how we get better, is listening to really smart people, hiring really smart people, letting them talk, letting them take initiative and drive processes, and sitting back, even though it may not be the way we do it. And so that's kind of like listening too, right? The way you listen sometimes is by letting others do, and you watch the outcome. And it's not to say I told you this was right or wrong, but to see people spread their wings and succeed. And that's, to me, that's real leadership. Just being open all the time.
But don't you think it's also important? I think it's critical, and we don't do enough of it. But there's also situational listening, meaning you take over a hotel, the hotel's on fire, you need to hire really good people, you need to maybe change out some people, and I'm listening, but I'm probably asking you to listen a little bit more for a few minutes, for a few weeks, for a few days. And then when we get the team that we all need to listen to, we go forward. So give you an example. I take over a hotel, I'm going to listen to people, right? I'm probably not going to be in the same listening stage that I'm listening to 6 months from now or 8 months from now when the house isn't on fire. Kind of like in what's going on with COVID right now. I would imagine executive meetings where typically you would have people in there that you would really want in there, but like you just can't have their opinion right now. You can't really listen. People got to kind of listen to you because you know what the cash flow looks like. So I think that we've got to learn as leaders and managers and line employees that yes, you will be heard and you'll be listened to, but it doesn't mean that every single time we have to listen to you for 3.5 hours, go on and on and on. And I think that sometimes managers and leaders don't know how to manage that. I'm sorry, Greg. I didn't mean to take your moment.
No, I was just going to say a couple things that I've heard in this early conversation is leaders don't necessarily need to do anything, and they have a responsibility as a leader to show up a certain way. But the way I coach and the way I've learned leadership is it's an honor, it's a privilege. Do you want to lead? Do you want to parent? Do you want to show up intentional with your language and your behavior and your relationships? Do you want to listen? And if you example that leadership, or if you show up that way, you not only listen better, but you become the leader for how others will listen to you better. And to your example about the hotel is on fire, you take it over, it's intentional right away. And do we get stuck in process, or do we make some immediate decisions based on what we're hearing from really good people that we brought into the organization? So situational listening, yes, but I would say that it's always intentional, and you listen and with your eyes too. Watch when you speak with people, how many times they look away and how many times they stay focused with you. And the other thing I want to bring into conversation is this distinction I love to bring into my relationships, and that's I think versus I believe. Have fun with that. listen to how many people start conversations or sentences with "I think," meaning they're just throwing out information versus "I believe." So I also believe leaders who speak the truth or what they believe is true will start more sentences with "I believe." So just something for us four in the audience.
Fascinating.
And I like what you said, intentional, because like, if you ever go into a store and you say, "You don't have that shirt, do you?" Right? How many people do that? Like, "You don't have that, do you?" "Oh, we can't get that, can we?" Like, again, you're not being intentional. You're not. Your words matter, and I agree.
Absolutely.
So, how does someone? I would imagine you walk into a room since you're born into this business, and immediately just you feel things and see things that maybe people aren't seeing, and you're realizing, hey, this meeting didn't have to go sideways. This hotel didn't have to go sideways. This company doesn't have to go sideways. We're not listening. We're not there. And you don't have maybe the strength to move mountains immediately and kind of say, okay, we're going to be intentional and these are the things we need to do. We agree and then move forward. You have to kind of take it until you're in a position. How do you survive that? Because I've never been good at surviving politics or corporations where people aren't listening to each other and managing and for the betterment of the team. I've just not been good at it, and I really don't ever want to get that good at it.
Well, I've been a good communicator, Anthony, for several years. How I developed my company and how I did really well in franchise sales development is about communication. But to your question specifically, when I get into a situation or I'm seeing leaders not lead, my coaching to them is you've got to stop and ask more questions. You can bring the room to a point where you want the room to be, or the meeting or the conversation to where you want it to be, by simply asking more interested questions and more open-ended questions instead of raising up and reminding everybody that you're in charge. When I walk into a situation where the service isn't good, there's typically a lack of leadership or the culture isn't there. And again, I would look to the people that have been hired, but it's usually the leadership that has allowed the service to be the way it is. So I ask questions, and before I get too far, it's pretty apparent that people are not communicating.
So, Chris, do you want to say something on that?
Yeah, I saw Mike Watt posted a question. Can you flash it again? How do you handle a situation as a GM when the owners are all of a sudden hands off and will not give direction? Mike, here's what I would say to you. One of the greatest things about being a GM, I loved the job, was you are an entrepreneur and that's your business to run. Bingo. So you should own that thing every day. Take control. You've been doing this long enough to become a GM. You know what the right things are to get done. And I've never had an owner complain if we're doing the right things, because the right things will point you towards success. It's really your role to pick up the pieces if they're pulled back and run it, because as general manager, you're the CEO of your building. And sometimes that's a scary step to take, but it's a fact. A lot of hotels do 5 to 50 million in revenue, and you're the CEO of a business, and you've got to lead with sincerity, aggressiveness, focus, and kind of surety. You know what to do, so do it.
Right. And there's also the most important thing at play there is or you should find out, what are the owner's intentions? What do they want? And remember, you're not the owner. You're there to help the owner bring his vision to life. If you're on a different path than the owner, then you need to get on the owner's path. And if he's just not listening, then you need to, as Greg said, you need to be a good communicator to be on the same path. It's very dangerous to your career, and it's very dangerous to the team when you and the owner aren't in sync. You don't have to be perfectly in sync, and you don't have to not disagree with the owner, because I've disagreed with every one of them at some point. But remember, it is not your business. You're the CEO of it, but there's somebody else's money at stake, and you need to know what their path is. And if it's in a disagreement, you got to come to some kind of agreement. Then, as Chris said, then you're the CEO of the business. If you take a Four Seasons hotel general manager that's been in the Four Seasons company forever, they're great general managers. But you take that person and you put them maybe in an independent hotel that there's no policies and no procedures. There's no, maybe you don't have the same level of employee. That's a different general manager. Not saying that one can't do the other and the other can't do the other, but it's a different general manager. At the end of the day, we're entrepreneurs, and you've got to preneur a lot.
Well, and hey, Anthony, last thing, and then I know that Glenn had some questions for Greg, but you've got to, as a leader, you got to be able to drive consensus too, right? You need to understand their goals and also the business outcome you're trying to achieve. And it's just like being the CEO of a public company. The shareholders may want one thing, but the best thing to do is a difficult path. And sometimes that's why the seat is hot. Being a leader is a hot seat. You've got to be able to drive consensus between constituencies that want two different outcomes, knowing that they both will ultimately end in success. It's the complexities of leadership, right, Greg?
Agree. And to Mike's question, I would say thank you to the owner. Thank you for your trust. I've got this. I am the leader of this asset. And to your point, Anthony, communicate very openly as to where we are and what we're going to do. You seek approval, but you don't need permission. But that's how I would honor the hands off. And that doesn't mean that they're aloof. That just means they trust you, or at least verify they do trust you and move on.
I remember walking to Ron Dome's office, the Lucerne Hotel we were just talking about. And I remember Glenn Isaacs, who's still working for the company, said I just was hired as general manager, first time, 29 years old, first time as general manager. And Glenn said to Ron, well, I'm going to be here for a couple of days with him. And he only worked in Midtown. So it wasn't like he was coming from a different country, a different state. He said, I'm going to be here for a few days every day with Anthony to kind of show him how we go about this and the different standards and stuff. And Ron Dome, as I'm outside, I know I have the job. As I'm outside, this is what I hear. He goes, sink or swim. That's the only words he told me for the first probably 6 months, sink or swim. And I was like, I'm a pretty good swimmer.
Yeah, you are. But Greg, I think there's an interesting facet of the conversation when it comes to leadership. How much leadership should be giving people specific direction versus allowing them to make their own mistakes versus actually being aloof and not giving people enough attention they need to actually be good leaders in their role as well. So how do you differentiate all of that?
Well, I would tie it up first of all, I would start with leadership is good. Good is okay. But what we're looking for is great leadership. And that starts with a heart and a soul to serve others first. And servant leadership isn't something Greg Aden created. It's been around for centuries. And you might know a guy that is in a little book called the Bible, but more recently, Robert Greenleaf made it famous in the 70s. And it really just means to serve first and lead second. So how are you showing up for others around you? And if you think about it in terms of leadership and parenting, which is a little bit more closer to home, pardon the pun, it is taking care of those that are following you. So to answer your question, Glenn, the first thing I want to do is, are they following you? Mm-hmm. Are they engaged? Are you engaged? Or are you just pretending to act like there's some engagement in the relationship? So that's the first thing I would do, is verify that everyone's following me. And then ask yourself, why are you really here? Why are we here as leaders? And again, if you need to put it in a parenting context, please do. But it's not to rule. It's not to manage. And it's certainly not to appease. And if you look at the discipline axis on the up and down and the love axis on the horizontal, you can imagine a little bit of some gives you manage. You get too much discipline and no love, it's called a ruler. You give too much love and no discipline, it's called appeasing. Now in the middle is this little sweet spot called support. But really, great leadership isn't about supporting. Great leadership is about elevating. And there's a good book out there called Building the Best by John Eads. Would recommend it to anybody. And if you want a copy, or you want me to talk with you about it, please see me about it. But it's about elevating those around you. And if you come from a place of spirit, not ego, not arrogance, but a place of spirit to truly serve others, and your main intention, most of the time, I know there's fires and emergencies, etc., but if we come from a place most of the time to elevate those that are following us, that's the role of a great leader. Right. And that's the great great thing to have in your heart whenever you're in a scenario. Before you raise your voice, before you tell someone that they're not good enough, ask yourself, is what I'm about to do, say, or feel going to elevate that human being?
Right. So, Chris, I got to ask you then, playing upon this, you've got to have different levels of leadership depending on who you're speaking with within your organization, depending on how much experience they have, how much they can handle on their own. How do you figure out and differentiate what people really need to not just be good support, but to be that good leader? They need to be better at their jobs without impinging upon them and stepping on their toes and making them feel as if they're being watched too closely.
Well, I mean, I think all great leaders have a high EQ, and I think that knowing your people on a personal level, knowing their performance, really paying attention, going back to listening where they succeed, listening where they struggle. It will tell you how to support them as they go through the careers at the company or the roles they're filling. I've always talked about servant leadership. I see it as, when we talk about the upside down pyramid at Chesapeake, the benefit of me having broad shoulders, I've always said, is that I can stand at the bottom and support our company. And luckily, I have lots of experience across all the disciplines. So when somebody's got a challenge, I can be a listening ear and I can support them and help them, guide them to solutions. But to me, supporting our team and all the different types of leadership is meeting them where they are, right? It doesn't matter whether I'm talking to a line level associate or I'm talking to somebody in our senior leadership team. I'm meeting them where they are and where their needs are and trying to help support them and push them forward to the right decisions. It doesn't do any good ultimately if I don't work myself out of a job, right? That's how companies grow, how
Amen.
Organizations grow, is I need to make sure that I've got 4 or 5 people that are the next level coming up. And that's what's exciting, is building into people, because listen, the throughput of doing that, and it's one of the most important jobs we have as leaders. The throughput of that is a successful company. Micromanaging processes and details is, sure, it's part of a management role. And there are times, like during a crisis, when as a CEO or a leader of an organization, you have got to grab the reins because you've been doing a long time and make tough decisions. But normal day-to-day stuff, we need to be elevating people forward and letting them, with our guidance, I call it the riverbanks effect in Chesapeake. I'm the riverbanks, you're the river. You go up and down that river in between the banks, making decisions. And if you're way out of line, I can help guide you back to the middle, but I want you to succeed and push you forward.
And, I think what we've been talking about in servant leadership, if you don't feel it, it's hard to teach. And I will tell you, I've never cried over a promotion or over a raise or a bonus. I've never gotten a raise or a bonus or a promotion, go, oh my God, I start crying. But I'll tell you, I don't think I've not cried when an employee gets a promotion, right, or an employee gets a raise. I mean, a housekeeper becomes a supervisor, and she's like, why are you crying? Like, because I know how hard you work. It's like, if you don't get it, you don't get it. So that's another, I know, Glenn, you want to ask Greg some questions. Yeah. One of the things I want to get to, once you do that, I have an important question. I think on this panel, we can solve this question that no one else in the world can solve. I think we can do it. So go ahead and ask your questions. I have a question to ask.
All right. I just want to say, Kimberly, of course, is our amazing guest from yesterday. If you want to learn more about that shepherd's hook that she's talking about, watch the beginning of tomorrow's show because she explains all of that. Yes, Kimberly, we got to have you back because you were just such an awesome guest. But Greg, I'm curious as to how all of this came together for you in terms of leadership. I'm sure you were doing great working for all these hotel companies, doing franchise development and all of that kind of stuff. You can make a really great salary doing it. What made you want to focus more on the leadership aspect as opposed to solely working on the franchise project? Although I know you still do that with companies today.
Sure. And it's really all about why am I here? What was my main purpose in life? And without going into the long history, everyone knows my background, perhaps 8 years with Marriott, 5 years financial services, and then 16 and a half with IHG, Intercontinental Hotels Group, where I was a very prolific regional franchise director. Big deal. Made a lot of money, broke records, and names on globes all over my house. Big deal. Then I became a leader. Or I took over a position that I believed was a leadership position. I did that for 3 years. And that's, Glenn, when I decided that I was going to be a leader instead of a manager. I was going to be a leader instead of a boss. I had, instead of subordinates, I called my regional directors my clients. I behaved in a way, and I started almost every day with, how may I serve you? And if you asked Lori Carr or John Fott or David Bingham or Sean Seamers, they said, where's this coming from? Well, this is different. But then again, I know what you do. I've done it as well as anyone in the industry. So let's not go to the process, because if I don't believe you can do the process, then you wouldn't be in the role. So how do we elevate these people that were on my team? And I did that with leadership. I did that with really honing in on, what do they want? What can I do today to serve them? What can I do to help remove barriers and things? So when I got out of that role, Glenn, was because I was getting married. I was adopting a little guy from Russia. We ended up getting pregnant. I was climbing a big mountain in Argentina, 22,000 feet. And I was actually at 18,000 feet when I literally woke up on I think it was the 20th day. And I said, what am I doing here? I have a pregnant wife and a newly adopted son at home, and I'm climbing another mountain. But see, that's what a performer does. That's what I was all about. I was all about the end result. So then I came home and I asked myself this question: why am I really here? And what can I do to make a difference in this world? And certainly with my boys, outside of just producing. Yeah, I was making a boatload of money, big deal. But why am I really here? And as it really turned out, leadership was something that I was studying my entire life. I didn't even know it. I had started a complete contrast between management and leadership when I was still at IHG. I interviewed hundreds of people about what do they believe servant leadership means while I was still at IHG, just to have fun. I would ask my clients the same thing. Before you know it, it came to me like a shot in the arm. And I said, Joel Eisman, I'm out of here. And unfortunately, my relationship with Laura Love, beautiful woman and a great wife, and we're still great friends, that didn't survive. By the way, I wouldn't recommend that you resign from a big job and get divorced in the same 6 months. Not my recommendation.
Wow. Well,
it took you so long to decide that you're not a manager, you're a leader. Like, what was that shift? Because I've been very focused in my career about obtaining things and getting to a certain level. So, because when you have some money, it's a certain level of freedom. But I've always tried to stay connected to the housekeeper, and I always say I'm a glorified housekeeper. I love housekeepers. I just do. 18.
He really does.
18 toilet bowls a day. You got my respect. And so as I got older, I became a better communicator. I became a better listener. Still not perfect. And I try to be a servant leader, but I think I kind of my mindset about leadership started maybe a little bit earlier. So what was your shift? What was your, all of a sudden at this age, this moment? It's like, you know what? I'm not going to be that guy. I never had the want to become that level that you achieved in your career. I never had that. I really didn't. What was it that made you shift?
Well, and I don't want to be specific to IHG because this isn't, but I was around enough bad management. Then when I saw good leadership, I understood exactly the distinction. Management is about managing process. Leadership is about leading, elevating, guiding, serving people, human beings. And when I saw people get ridiculed and made fun of, and why aren't you producing like Greg Aden, et cetera, I thought to myself, that's not leadership. And now I bring to companies and organizations humility, courage, passion, integrity, accountability. And those 5 principles, Glenn, if we lived by them just by accident, we'd be better leaders. But if we start, and when we start living those principles, integrity, I am my word, accountability, responsible for all, our thoughts, our words, our actions, courage. It's not about being a badass. It's not about not being fearful. It's about being courageous with our word. Imagine if we leaned into our conversations more, Anthony, and we honestly said what it is we wanted to know or learn from another human being. And we just asked it. Because you know what? We get 100% of what we don't ask for.
Right.
Tell that to your 8-year-old. He already knows. Right. But the people, we grow up in fear because we've been told no, or we've been ridiculed, or we've been put in our place. And so we get fearful. But great leaders are courageous with their word. And they example leadership in that way. So others see it and they feel comfortable saying anything they want to say. And I believe that when someone really wants to know, it comes out in their heart, it comes out in their words, and you can feel it in their voice.
So go ahead, Anthony.
I want to ask Chris a question. As the smartest person that's ever been born, Chris, that's you. Please answer this question that no one else has ever been able to answer. Leadership, born or made? Craig's shaking his head. That's not even the question he wants me to ask.
I am gonna say made.
Okay, so Greg, why did you shake your head so quickly?
Neither.
I agree with Greg, just so you know. I mean, if you make me pick, I'm going to say made, and I'll tell you why. But I agree with Greg. I think it's both. But go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I think it's both too.
It's neither. naturally get to the front of the room because you can't stand the pace somebody's going. That's not a leader. That's impatience. You're not made because someone says, here's a leadership book, I'm going to make you a leader. You become a leader because you want to lead. You have that passion in your belly and you study it. You become a leader. But you become a leader when you understand what leadership is all about.
Are there some traits of leader
well, yes, but the first thing, and Chris, I believe you'd agree with me, the first thing great leaders understand is it's not about you. And when you take your ego out of it, and Kimberly said it yesterday brilliantly, she goes, yes, I'm on top of the pyramid. I know I'm the boss, so to speak, but it's about everyone else that makes the hotel.
100%.
It's about everyone else that makes the town. It's about everyone else that makes the Air Force Base. Right. She said it so brilliantly. If you just replay that part again and again and again, when leaders are great leaders, they understand it's not about them. So the trait is humility. If you really want to know two things that I believe great leaders study, that's courage with their word, and it's humility. It's not about you. Now, empathy is probably overused, as is authentic. So like my 8-year-old or my 9-year-old right now, I'm giving him a little bit of humble pie every day because he needs it. He will not be humble if he continues on this trail. And I work with people all day long about, are you listening? Yeah, no, you're not listening because you're always talking. If you want to be a great leader, ask great questions. And I've got a stack of books here that I could take a picture of and send to you, Glenn. And I'd recommend that if anyone wants to become a leader and get out of management, come see me. It's not that difficult, but it starts right here with the heart.
Well, I remember going into basic training and I standing in a squadron, a very hot ground in San Antonio, Texas. And I remember squadron leaders getting picked. And I remember there were 6 squadron leaders, and I obviously was not one. And I say obviously because if you knew me back then, you would know that I barely was able to get in the military. So, and I remember standing in the back of the thing because for some reason it was tall to short, and I was all in the back. And I remember staring at these guys. I'll never forget as long as I live. And I was just like, how? You've been plucked from your house. You're in the middle of nowhere. You're dying in the heat. You're scared. And how are you leading this squadron? Because you're just like me. You just got here. And all of a sudden there was something about you. Maybe the way he was raised. Maybe I didn't grow up with a dad. I didn't grow up with a lot of structure. So I didn't realize maybe he was the captain of the baseball team. Maybe he was the captain of the football team. He already had maybe some discipline and structure in his life, which I never had any. And I just remember looking at them going, I will never, ever be that person. And then all of a sudden I'm in positions that, I'm conductor of a great symphony and I have great teams around me. And you're right. So I agree with a little bit. I think a little bit I was born with it and a little bit that I was I wanted to be a leader. I never call myself a leader, actually. I call myself a manager. Other people call me a leader. I always say if I turn around, nobody's following me, then I'm not a leader, right? So, and that's just semantics. That's just my personal opinion. So I think it's just you have to want to be the person that that is making other people's job easier. That's why kind of I loved the positions I've had in my career, is because I know if there's one person in the room that's unhappy and there's one person that's happy and there's one person in the middle, that I can do something to influence that room to bring people together and talk to each other in a way that we all feel good about that room. Greg, you want to say something?
Yeah. Hey, I just want to recognize the gentleman's name, and I thought it was Rob, but they said very succinctly, great leaders are great followers first.
100%.
And if you don't understand how to follow, you'll never understand how to lead. And that comes again through humility. And I don't mean being soft. I don't mean being you never say anything. It's just when someone asks you to do something in a role of respect, you do it, you learn it, and then you understand how to get people to follow you by being a great follower. So whoever that was, great comment. And it doesn't normally come up, and I'm glad it did this morning. That's great.
Listen, I love the fact when I'm on a team, even if I'm the general manager or the vice president, I love when I'm the least important person in the room. I love when everybody around me is flying at such a high level that I basically say, what kind of donuts and coffee you want today? Like, I love being the person that learns the most in the room. I love, like, that's why I love the show. I don't always agree with everyone, but I love learning every single day. And I love talking to my housekeeper. So what's your opinion? Right. I remember one housekeeper, we had a birthday thing at the Algonquin, and I said, so you've been here 30 years, you love our food? And she goes, I don't know. Like, what do you mean you don't know? She goes, I've never been in the dining room. I was like, what? You've never had our food? She goes, no, I've never been invited to the dining room in 30 years.
Wow.
So I love being around people that teach me things and just, and I don't know if it's about being humble or whatever. It's just about never forgetting that hero today, zero tomorrow.
That's right. And Chris, I think you could speak to this being a great leader and a great follower. As somebody who came up through the ranks of the industry and last year became CEO of a company. So you had to do a lot of following while simultaneously doing a lot of leading. How do you balance those two things? And what were some of the hallmarks of your leadership skill set that you think helped you achieve such a great position with Chesapeake Hospitality?
Answer this well, Chris. Kimberly is replacing you on Thursday. Go ahead.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Well, two things. I don't want to get too long-winded of an answer, but I remember when things changed for me. I will say, as a leader, you've got to be super curious, right? Always be learning, always be questioning what's going on. I remember being a very young leader, and luckily I was a relatively smart guy, good at business. So I accelerated my career pretty quickly, became a regional manager at a very young age, but I was managing people and I was getting angry because they weren't responding well. And I, being a curious person and also realizing that I was going to fail if I couldn't get people to get behind me and support what I was trying to get done, took a deep, hard look at how I was leading, and I wasn't. I was managing. So I realized then and there I needed to start listening and also understanding people's needs, and then using emotional intelligence, understanding the situation, and being a leader that could win people to a cause instead of demanding a cause. And that really changed things for me. And once I started adapting the I'm less and you're more, and your outcome is more important to me than mine, because ultimately mine will be affected, it really started rolling. And honestly, I really never lobbied for a promotion in my career after that day. They all have kind of come along. And I'm thankful for what I have now, because now I really can study and follow leadership at the very highest level and help people to achieve what I achieved in hospitality, which is incredible to me. I'm the son of a enlisted military man. I'm not a college graduate. I got out of college because I was so busy working. So I've had great success, and I'm thankful that people poured into me and showed me where I was wrong and guided me towards success by a great leader for me. I did want to say to Greg, and he doesn't know this at all. He doesn't know my company probably, other than maybe his time at HG, but our core values at Chesapeake are 3 words: honesty, integrity, and humility. Those are our core values, and that's what we live by as a company. And you want to talk about a difficult filter to guide business through? You can't avoid integrity, you can't avoid humility, and you can't avoid honesty. And it makes for very succinct decision making, because when you're guided by very stringent principles like that and they mean something to you, it's a very clear way to do business, but also difficult sometimes.
And for me, it's been pretty easy because my standards are whatever Glenn tells me they are. So it's pretty easy.
Hey, Glenn, I was just going to say that I had the privilege of listening to your show with Kimberly, and I would just say that if you put Chris and Kimberly side by side, what are you going to see? You're going to see humility. You're going to hear that they're grateful, they're thankful, they're fortunate. And the curiosity is really about, it all starts with why. And if you don't know Simon Sinek, please become a Simon Sinek fan around why. It's not what we do. And yes, it is about how we do it, but it's why we do it. The other person I want to introduce is.
But I will say, I was speaking to David Kong last week, and he also invoked Simon Sinek's name in that conversation.
And the other person I would introduce to everybody, if you don't know her, it's Brene Brown. It's all about vulnerability and courage. And vulnerability, ladies and gentlemen, is not weak. See me if you think being vulnerable is weak. I'm not saying go out there and be intimate with everyone. I'm saying be vulnerable about what it is that you believe is true. And courage is next door to vulnerability. And she has made vulnerability, I don't want to say in vogue, but something that men and women both need to embrace if they want to be great leaders. So
why does that work?
Because when you're curious and you're vulnerable, you open yourself up to saying, here, I want you to see into me as well. And vulnerability, when you're asking questions, gets the other person to answer what's important to them. When you ask somebody else's why, and you get them to be curious about your why, and to Chris's point, what is the why of Chesapeake? If it's all about honesty and integrity, and they're kind to one another, it's pretty obvious. You're going to be a fit or you're not going to be a fit. And I would say great leaders look for people who have great cultural values, not they're just sucked in about all their talent and technical abilities, because you can teach that. But you can't always teach somebody how to be kind and considerate and humble and courageous.
Well,
that's why it's important.
How do you teach somebody to...
There was a time I was at one of my hotels I was running, and when I was introduced to the word vulnerability, and it was a long time ago in my career, probably 25 years ago. And I remember disagreeing with a salesperson. And we had an environment where we were all working together and we were all able, there was no titles. We were all able to disagree with each other, all in open forum, as long as we didn't disrespect each other. I don't tolerate the disrespect and the cursing and the yelling, but there's got to be a real good exchange. And me and this young lady were going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I said, I'm wrong. You're right. And she goes, stop, stop. I've told the story before, stop saying that. Like just to brush me off. She said, no, what you just said made me listen, because I wasn't listening. I just wanted to be right. And I'm sorry. You are 100% right. I'm 100% wrong. Let's move on. It took her like 5 minutes to stop arguing with me when I stopped arguing with her. And that's the second that I learned my vulnerability, how important it is to myself to take, because it is courageous to be vulnerable, because I am going to be wrong in that meeting, and everyone's going to look at me. What's going to happen when that happened?
It's okay.
They're going to get empowered, and they're going to say, I'm allowed to challenge him. And when I'm in a situation like this, Anthony's telling me through his actions that you need to take a breath, you need to listen, and you don't need to be right because you have the biggest title in the room. So I've been using the word vulnerability in my keynote speaking engagements since the day I got on the stage. It is the most important and valuable word in leadership. If you're not vulnerable, like when I took over Nickelodeon, I jumped on stage, and the first thing I said to everyone was, I ran New York City hotels, up and down hotels. I've never run a water park. I've never run an entertainment structure. I've never run 1,500 rooms. I've never had 3,000 employees. Never had any of this. I've never worked in Florida. So who better than me to run your hotel? And everyone laughed, and they got the joke that I'm not going to be in a room where everybody's making fun of me. I'm going to show my vulnerability so I can get ahead of it and say, yeah, I don't belong here. We'll figure this out together.
Humility.
And that to me is where it's one, yes, you can call it leadership, you can call it management, you can call it vulnerability, but you can also call it survival and instinct. And my instinct was, if I stayed in that position and I didn't tell them how vulnerable I was feeling and how silly I was feeling that I have this job, I was going to be made fun of. And when I was a kid, I got made fun of a lot. And that's where it probably comes from.
You know the movie Jerry Maguire? When he comes in at the very end and all the women are in the room and his ex-wife, I guess, but they broke up. And he's going on and she says, just shut up. You had me at hello. Anthony, I will tell you that you brought into this conversation 2, or depending on how you look at it, 3 words that if you say them authentically, you can save so much time, money, and energy in all of your relationships. And that's, I'm sorry. But it's got to be authentic. And it's not, I'm sorry, you're right now, shut up. It's, I'm sorry, I didn't see it your way before. I'm sorry, I wasn't available to you. Or I'm sorry, I spoke the way I spoke to you. And again, you can put this in leadership or parenting, and all of your relationships, all the time that we've been stubborn as men and women and goofballs, if we would have just said to myself, is this really about me? And if it is, why am I getting so excited about it? If it means something, that yes, fight for your life. But if it's not that important, simply just look at them and say, hang on a minute. I'm sorry. Can we start over? My bad. Now, imagine that in a boardroom, would you? It's possible. It is possible if the person has a big enough heart and a small enough ego, then he or she's willing to say,
right,
great point, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. One of the things that I think people might struggle with is allowing themselves to be vulnerable. And I don't mean that they don't want to do it. They don't really know how to
Exactly.
do it. How do you allow yourself to be vulnerable without looking like you've gone too far down that,
and I
that
think
path?
that's the secret. And Chris, I'd like you to talk to that, because I think you do a good job of that, just knowing you a little bit on the show. You show a lot of strength, but you also show vulnerability, and that's not weakness. And a lot of people mistaken vulnerability with weakness. And I guarantee you, if anybody was on the other side of a boardroom table with either one of us, all of us, think they would realize that's weakness and vulnerability are two different. They live in two different worlds. So, Chris, why don't you talk about that? Because I would imagine. Let me ask you a more direct question. I would imagine because of the way you come off, the way you are, you're a pretty elegant guy. You're a soft-spoken guy in a lot of ways. That people do take your vulnerability and kindness for weakness. I would imagine that's been a problem in your career. Am I right or wrong?
Maybe early on, but I will tell you, there used to be the statement you made. There used to be a great T-shirt, and I used to love it. It said, "Never mistake my kindness for weakness."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a good business person, and I know that for people, and this is something that Greg, I'm sure, can comment on, is strong leadership also requires strong framework of what you expect, right? So my people know if you were to get my SVP of operations on and you asked her questions about my leadership, she'd say, I hope she would say, I love working for Chris because I have freedom, but I also know what lines not to cross, things that will never be accepted at Chesapeake, and where Chris will draw the line immediately and without question. And so I think firmness and being a leader that has a strong backbone that never bends from integrity, honesty, humility. I tell Lisa all the time, if we can't pass what we're trying to do through the filter of integrity or honesty, we're not doing it. And we'll have to figure a way to do it differently. And so you've got to be firm in your stance. You got to be comfortable in your skin. I think I can be vulnerable. I told you when I walked into Gettysburg last week for the first time and I saw my transition team, I'm going to do it again, you guys. I got a little misty over my mask because I love those people. And we were back doing what we love. That's not weakness. That is my genuine love for the team that we've developed and care for them. And I'm just so happy to see them doing what they love. Does that make me weak? No, that makes me part of something that's bigger than just pushing buttons and checking people in and out. It makes me part of a family that is committed to great success in hospitality. So, I don't care one bit what people think about my, I'll go toe to toe. As a matter of fact, I have emails right here on my right about a legal situation I'm dealing with. And you can believe we're firm about this legal situation, and I will be too. That's part of being this job. But I also will do it with kindness and tact so long as I can. There's no reason. This is something, if you'll give me one more second, that I tell the young managers and leaders that I had to learn the hard way. It's being a manager and leader, you get the title, but that's not how you win the people, right? So, and I always say them, people, especially guys are like, I told you to do this. That's never going to work. It just doesn't work anymore. You need to get people to buy in. And I tell them also, remember, you're still the manager if you say, hey, Anthony, would you please help me clean up aisle 4? And you're kind. And you say, hey, I'll even come help you, but I just need some help today. Guess what? They still have to do it because you're the manager, but that changes your world. It changes the conversation. It shows empathy and concern and care. And I mean, for me, that's just the way I lead. Asking them politely is the same as telling them, but you're doing it from a humane point of view where none of us are better than each other. We just have different jobs.
Right. And I think one of the things that is tied into when you get into a position of you have to kind of draw the line, your concrete are your core values. That's your concrete. So I'm not saying because Anthony Melchiori wants it. Mission statements and core values in every hotel are very important to me. It's before I even know where my desk is, I'm thinking about them as I'm walking around the hotel. So it's the concrete. So all I do is say, can we take out the mission statement? Can we take out our core values? Is there anything that I'm doing or we as a team are doing that go against our mission statement or core values? Yeah, but. No, there's no yeah, but, because that's the concrete that holds up the building. And if the concrete that holds up the building is weak, we all fall down because we butted our way through this hotel, and it doesn't work.
One thing I wanted to add to what Chris was saying is John Wooden, many people know him as a fantastic basketball coach, won 12 or 10 titles in 12 years. He has a saying that says, don't worry so much about your reputation. That's what other people think. Worry more about your character, and that's who you are. And if you are kind and you are considerate, you are courageous, you are humble, does it really matter what others say about you? No, it doesn't. The people following you know who you are. They know your character because they're living it. And that's just one thing I wanted to bring into the conversation. It's you know who you are. And by the way, to leaders out there, if you're saying, this is way too hard, I don't believe I can ever be a great leader. Well, you can shift on a dime. Tomorrow, you can be more kind. Tomorrow, you can be more humble. Tomorrow, you can ask better questions, open-ended questions, and actually have the other person's interest at heart. And when you start showing up that way, yes, it might take a little time if you've been an arrogant, all these years, but you can change it anytime you want. And I would bet a dime to donut, Chris, that you're not only a great leader, you're a great man, you're a great father, and you're a good friend. And what else do you want to talk about? Do you know the business? Of course you do. Right. Do you know how to lead a boardroom? Of course you do. Do you know how to promote the bottom line and protect the losses? Of course you do. But that's not why they hire you. They hire you because you're a great man. They hire Kimberly because she's a great woman and a good human being. And if there's one thing I would leave today with, I know we're running short of time.
And I got one more topic I want to talk about after this.
Okay. You look around today and the word human doesn't come up enough in our conversations. If we would just be more humane, more human, and then lead, let's start with just being better humans. Well, who's gonna take that lead? Well, guess what? Everybody on this podcast, everybody that's listening, if you want to be more human, then just decide. Just decide and you will. Don't worry about all the noise. Take care of your tribe, take care of your family, take care of those that are following you. And I guarantee you this world will be a better place. The noise will take care of itself.
I love that. All right. So we got a question a while back, and I don't know if producer David could find it, but Kevin Sanders, our good friend over there, said he wants to know if you guys have any ideas on team building through virtual environments, because we're all separated right now. We all know regular team building, but how is it changing, Greg, in your opinion, in virtual world?
Really, it's we don't have this. We're not in the same space, so we can't feel each other's energy. But even on a great Zoom call, you can open up with. First of all, I always recommend you open up with some sort of sharing. What is the best thing to happen to you this week? What's in your heart today? What's the most powerful, courageous conversation you had? And again, if that feels weak to you, then go hire a different coach. But I guarantee you, this stuff works. And then you get into the agenda about what it is that you really want to cover today. And at team building, you talk about trust. You talk about if you were here and you can't be, what would you be doing? What do you want to accomplish today is no different than whether we're on Zoom or we're in the room. What helps a good team building scenario is interviewing everybody prior to the retreat or prior to the meeting. What is it that you, Chris, want to accomplish during the retreat? And I don't care what your title is. But whoever's facilitating that team building needs to interview everybody specifically and find out what are their goals for that retreat or that meeting, in addition to the traditional agenda we ever have. And I guarantee you, there's probably not very many people on this phone or on this podcast and actually interview people prior to the retreats or the meeting and say, what do you want? What do you want to make sure that we discuss? That's team building.
Right. I think that's beautiful. Chris, instead of asking you the same question, we just got an amazing question from Mike McManus. How do you navigate through leadership styles in your team that don't necessarily mesh? Maybe a sales manager versus an operational manager or whatever. Who they may be stuck a little bit in their way. So how do you bring those personalities together? How do you create a successful team? How do you get everybody to be on the same page?
Well, Greg kind of pointed to it just a second ago. You got to determine what everybody's outcome of success looks like and then see where those meet and help them to figure out what role they play, that it's not a win-lose situation. It's everybody wins situation. And that's the leader's role is figuring out where those points will meet. And if they don't meet, getting consensus on how to get them to meet, right? Because listen, that's the age-old adage. I haven't heard that in a while, but ops versus sales. As a matter of fact, my best friend in the business, Clifford Farrar, he's our EVP of sales and revenue generation. He and I used to go toe-to-toe when I was the ops guy and he's the EVP of sales. And we had to find common outcomes, right? Because it was always ops wasn't doing it or sales was selling something that we couldn't deliver. But the outcome was the same, right? Top line revenue and performance of the hotel and guest satisfaction and employees that get raises and the building that continues to succeed. So you've really got to work and listen for what their outcome is and their frustration points. That's your job as the leader, is to understand the frustration points and the inflection points where things aren't working and help to move them out of the way, right? Be an obstacle mover for your people. It can be done. It just takes kind of limiting the rhetoric and finding out the success and pointing everyone towards it.
Yeah, and it's not something that can be forced. It's something's got to be collaborative. And when I was running one of the hotels, I think it was the Lucerne Hotel, our sales manager Laura won Employee of the Year, and we specifically had just Employee of the Year, not a manager or sales manager, whatever, Employee of the Year, because it was a relatively small hotel. And when was the last time a sales manager in my history? I don't remember. A sales manager won Employee of the Year. It's usually a housekeeper or front desk or whatever. She was dominated by every single employee in that hotel basically to win. And the reason why is because we would have these problems: sales, revenue management, operations, housekeeping, front desk. We know, right? We know where all the wars are and where all the dead bodies are, right? And I said to her, I said, you go to really nice restaurants and you travel and you dress really well and you don't sweat a lot. Okay. They don't see you sweat. I see how hard you work and I see what you've done for this company, but they don't. They just see you walk in the door and out the door. Okay. And smiling and wave. And it looks like your job is really easy. You've got to explain to them how important their job is and how important your job is. Give you an example. If you go to ABC and you want ABC, the channel we had on the Upper West Side, and you want their contestants from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, because you got their contestants, and you want their executives.
Rest in peace, Regis Philbin.
Yes, love Regis. I actually used to work on the same gym. I used to see him all the time. Nice guy in the world.
I love that dude.
And so it was the first time ever that we wanted the executives from the show and the contestants to stay at the same hotel. I wanted both, and Laura wanted both. And I was like, well, if they agree to it, we've got to then talk to the operations team about why that's important. So that's how we basically went about our business. We went about and said, we didn't tell them that, hey, we got this big contract, so important. We was like, okay, the executive who's in charge of the team needs the team to be on a different floor because he's not allowed to really be near the contestants because the other contestants can say that he's favoring them. So you've got to keep it separate. They've never done this before, but they give us a lot of respect by doing that because they've been to our hotel and they know we can do it. And all of a sudden she won Employee of the Year. So that is how you bring those relationships together. You don't talk about it. You be about it. You show up. You show why. And again, I can be the loudest voice in the room. I can be the most aggressive voice in the room. I can be the most motivated person in the room. But I'm not a lot of the times. Matter of fact, the first time I pitched my show, they said I was boring.
Yes, they did.
and a lot of people that know me and even on the show, it's like, what? It's like the only time you're boring when you're sleeping. And probably even not that.
Even then, you're fascinating.
But when you're in a room with really intelligent people and you all have the same cause, if you're the person that's making the most noise, okay, all you're doing is making noise. I've been in a room when I take over a hotel and I am making a lot of noise and I want to make a lot of noise and I'm trying to shake people up because I want to see people's eyes. And I want to see people's attention span. I want to see if people think I'm crazy. The people think I'm crazy and want to be around crazy are probably people who are going to be successful around me. The people that are afraid of us kind of talking through problems is not a person that's going to be real successful all the time if they're afraid of that. So I try to bring them together. And if I can't, that's another important thing to leadership and management, right, guys? Is you got to promote them to customer. Sometimes people just can't work on that team, and there's nothing wrong with that. They will find their journey. They will find their place. They will find happiness. I always used to say, I have a bus outside, really nice driver. He'll give you a glass of water and he'll drive you anywhere you want to go. But it just doesn't seem like you want to be on this bus. There's a different bus. And I'll give you a good reference. You're a good person, but it just doesn't seem, we're not that bad. I'm not asking you to do anything. And you know, when you've done so many things for somebody and all of a sudden becomes like, you're the problem. It's like, and then when you ask them to say, this is not working out, all of a sudden, all the good things you did and help them and support them, you just waited too long because now you became the problem. Now it's your fault. So it's really important not only to bring teams together, but also to understand when they're not meshing.
Yep.
Hey, Glenn, something that when Chris was chatting and Anthony mentioned it as well is when to the point of it's when you have, whether you have ops and sales or anything else in any industry, you look for the common ground first.
Right, of course.
And you literally try and understand empathy, where that other person is coming from first. Then when you get an understanding of where each person or each party or department is coming from, then you can focus on common interest. And when you're focused on the common interest and you literally put a game plan together to focus on that, that's when real good things happen. And if you continue to stay in a corner and butting heads, then one of you needs to seek better leadership, or someone that's responsible for that particular asset or the outcome needs to step in and say, enough, this shit stops now, and we're going to focus on why we're really here. So again, there's opportunity for leadership there, and then there's opportunities for two people with opposite or opposing needs or wants or whatever to just put the other person first for a little while.
Right. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. Anthony, we're getting on 1:15 now. How about you say we get these guys, give us some final thoughts from them. What do you think?
I mean, listen, I am your employee. You are my leader. Lead.
Well, that's the whole thing about a great leader is he makes others feel like they're completely in charge.
By the way, the check you sent me this week didn't clear. This is what I would say as you're telling people about where they can find you, Greg and Chris. I think everybody knows where they can find you now. But so as you're kind of leaving, I think what's really important is right now, even great leaders are challenged. Right now, even great managers are challenged. Every one of us is challenged. They're this go get them. You can do it. Like I don't like that's not my thing. I'm not a rah-rah. Ha! I'm like, give me structure, give me things that I can do to improve myself. So either one of we want to take that, and then we'll say goodbye. Sayonara. See you later.
Chris, do you want to go first?
No, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say great segment to a great ending, Anthony, is right now, leaders, please don't be afraid to ask for help. This is the most powerful thing you can do right now is do this. Raise your hand and say, I need help. Trust me. And I mean that specifically. Trust me, it's not going to be viewed as weakness. If you ask other people what we should be doing more and what we should be doing less, and they look at you like, well, you're Chris, you know everything. Well, no, I don't know everything as Anthony or Glenn or Greg. That's why I'm asking for help. Now you've endured them to serve you and come together at a time when not everything is going smooth. So,
Greg, that's another example of vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And I can see why that would be so effective and help engender people to you, because once you expose yourself and let them in a little bit more to who you are, I think people find you to be more real, so to speak, and they connect better with them.
Yes, it's not only vulnerable, Glenn, but it's courageous. It takes a courageous human being to say, I need help. I don't know everything. And right now I want everyone to come together and let's meet more often to find out how we can survive. And once we can survive, then we can thrive again. But if you walk around acting as if everything's okay and you know everything, you and your little ego, good luck to you.
But I will add a little caveat to that. It's important because we've all been there where we've asked for help and we've been either ridiculed or made fun of or fired or whatever, or like roll your eyes or what. So the people that you're asking for help when you're in your most vulnerable position, make sure that they have the ability to help you. Make sure that they're there and they're going to be supportive, because the worst thing to do is when you're in a vulnerable position, you're already weakened and you need help, is picking the wrong person to help you. And that person may not be your boss. That person may be your mother. That may be your preacher. That may be your friend. That may not be the person that that is most likely to help you, because they don't have.
And I don't want to say there's a gross assumption here, but we've been talking about leadership, and I would say that anybody that's listening would assume that I'm going to ask somebody to help me because I love them, I trust them, and they will be honest with me. There's a relationship there. It's not some Yahoo that doesn't know me and doesn't understand where I'm coming from. So absolutely. And I'm sorry. I think that was assumed. Chris, Glenn, that's all I've gotten. And again, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be here. Chris, it's great to meet you virtually.
Greg, and let us know how people can find you and learn more about what you do.
Yeah, it's really easy. It's Aden Leadership, ADEN, AdenLeadership.com. I'm all over LinkedIn, Facebook. I'd love to have great conversation. There's been fantastic questions we didn't have a chance to get to. Just reach out and ask me any question that you want to talk about relative to leadership, parenting, being a better human being, more vulnerable, more courageous. I do
The question
that.
I have for you is, do you like Chris better or Kimberly better as a co-host?
I honestly, I believe the two of them.
Recuse yourself.
No, the two of them together could really change not only this industry but others. Just about talking about this one topic. How can we show it more powerfully? How can we show it more powerfully for one another? That would be a great topic. Kristen,
All right, so
would be great.
let's do that. We'll set up a show and have them go back and forth on this.
Replace us.
I know, right? So, Chris, any final thought for today?
I love me some Anthony. That's what I like to say. Listen, this is probably, honestly, I love the hotel business and I love what I do, but ultimately I love leadership because I think that it can really expand our belief system of who we are and can show up as people and how we can affect other people's lives and how we can speak into them. I was going to say, to Greg's point, I have texts this morning from 4 other CEOs of management companies that I go out to and I ask them help. Hey, I'm a CEO, but you know what? I want to know what these guys are doing. And these guys are all humble, they're smart, and they don't mind sharing, even though we compete, because they're in the same spot. I'm open enough to say, I need help. I don't understand this one issue. What do you do about this? Listen, always be curious. Never be embarrassed about asking questions. Believe in who you are. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is this. If you wake up every day and you're in conflict, you feel like when you go to work, you're in conflict being somebody that you're not being authentic. And authenticity will heal your soul. It will. Be who you were made to be. And that's how I'm going to go down like that. If it ends up not working out, Chris Green's leadership style is a flame out, then at least I went out being who I was.
You know what I always say? I'd rather fail, being me than fail trying to be, someone like me. I'm going to be me. And one of the things that upset me anytime on my set was if a producer is part of the team and making me better and giving me notes that, that they're there with me, or are they just telling me, well, do it this way. And I ask why. And they're like, I don't know, just do it that way. That's going to be a long day. So I'd rather lose my show, lose my career, lose my reputation out of just being me as opposed to somebody directing me how to be me. And I think that's authenticity. That does not mean not being kind. That doesn't mean not being quiet. That doesn't mean not being humble and sitting in the room and shutting up. That means just when you come home and that chest is out here because of the stress and your wife's talking to you and you're like, what? And your kids are talking to you like, what? Like, you're not being you. My daughter said to me not too long ago, do you ever get stressed? I was like, what?
Chris, I'm gonna go out on a limb, Chris, and I'm gonna say that the word inspire is gonna end up somewhere on your tombstone.
That's kind, Greg. That's kind, Greg. Thanks, guys, for having somebody like Greg on. I love learning from
All right, Chris, stick around for 1 second. Greg, thank you so much for being here. We will see you again, hopefully again soon. So congratulations on everything. Aden Leadership, Greg Aden. Sorry, what was that, Anthony?
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Enjoyed it. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you. All right, check him out at Aden Leadership. All right, so I'm wondering what's going on here because you're being kept after school, it feels like.
Kimberly is really trying to get Chris's job because right at the end, she's like, hey, by the way, I'm still here.
I see her on there. Kimberly, I'm coming for you.
No, Kimberly are like some of the most inspiring people ever. So I have a question for you. I think it's really important to talk about leadership, vulnerability, all that. So I'm going to use you as an example if you're okay with it. You said something that's really important to a lot of people that I have been around, and they seem very insecure about it, and it comes up even when they're at the top of the game and they have bigger houses and more cars and more money than I'll ever have. They say, but I didn't go to college. You mentioned that, and you're the CEO of a major company. Right now, with a lot of people, one, they can afford college. One, maybe they're like, maybe I shouldn't go to college. Maybe I should get a trade. Maybe this is a good time to start my business. Is college going to look the same way in 4 or 5 years? They're trying to figure it out. Regardless of that, we don't know the answer to that. Talk through that a little bit about your maybe insecurity and your thought process. And what would you tell somebody that didn't finish college because they were too busy working or they didn't decide to go to college? Because I know a lot of people who are real successful that dropped out of 6th grade.
Yep. And listen, I used to, if I'm going to be transparent here, like I promised you guys I always would be. I used to really be kind of scared to bring it up. And it was kind of something that I hid away from. And now I wear it like a badge of courage. And I also wear it out, and I'm out loud about it because you can, in hospitality and several other industries, restaurants, a lot of things that we do, you can go anywhere on experience, expertise, and passion. And that's what happened to me. I was in a situation where I needed to work. And I was going to school some. As you can see, I'm a big FSU guy, not an alum, but I love the school and the team. But I was working full time in the restaurant business, and I saw an opportunity to become a manager or stay in school. And so I took it. At 21 years old, I'm running a restaurant, and then I was a district manager at 23. So ultimately, I think I made the right decision. Did I miss out on some things? Sure. But I learned through hard knocks, and I'll never forget the lessons I learned. Like this one from one of my GMs at one of the restaurants I worked at that said, Chris, I was always worried about costs. Chris, you can get costs down to the point where, what did he say exactly? If you keep focusing on costs, you'll get sales down to where you can handle them. I mean, that was life-changing. It was life-changing. And so these guys are smart. And guess what? That guy didn't have a degree either. And so, yeah, I used to be scared and embarrassed, and I would say, oh, this or that. I don't have that. But guess what? I have passion. I've worked super hard about being curious and knowing our business and pursuing information. Whenever I hear something I don't know, I go after it like tenacious. I want to learn revenue management, whatever it is, e-commerce, digital marketing. You can do it. And I'm going to be who I am, Anthony. I don't have a degree. My dad didn't have a degree. He was very successful. My son is an apprentice electrician. He played lacrosse in college and figured it out wasn't for him. Now he's an apprentice electrician. He won't have a degree, but he'll have a great career. I'm proud of him. I have a daughter that's going to college, and she's going to be a lawyer, and that's great. It's whatever's best for you. But I can tell you that in this business, the sky is the limit, whether you have a degree or not.
I think the most important thing about that, and thank you for being so vulnerable and talking about that, because I really feel bad. I did get my degree because it was really important to me, because I was an insecure guy. I felt like I was dumb because I got left back a couple times. I didn't do well in the SAT. I didn't have a lot of structure. So the degree to me gave me confidence, and the military gave me even more confidence. So it was important to me. But I never stopped learning. And that's why you're successful, because a lot of people finish their college degree and they stop learning, right? Joe Rogan never went to school. Okay. I learned more from that show than I learned from anything I've read, or read or listen to, because he has really interesting people and he asks really interesting questions. I don't really care about his viewpoint. I don't agree with some of his viewpoints, but the people that have on his show, like the guy who started the Spartan race, I'm learning so much from the guy who started the Spartan race. So if you stop learning, that's when you stop going to college. That's when you stop getting your degree. Not when you get a degree. It's when you stop learning and reading and being inquisitive. And that's what I say. The reason I love housekeepers is because they're the most vulnerable. They don't expect you to ask their opinion. They don't expect you to want that you're going to change the policy of the hotel or change the trajectory of the marketing of the hotel because I said so. Say, well, yeah, because you have the most input. So I honor that. I honor you, and I appreciate that. So, I feel the same way. If you have passion, follow your passion, and money will come, success will come. But also, Chris, the only reason you're able to talk about it now is because you did have some successes. So you have to have those little successes. That's important.
But you can do it. And I want to be careful and not say that I'm a fan of college too. There's a lot of great things going on. And since I've kind of come through the ranks, I've taken my CHA exam with American Hotel Lodging Association. I have gone to Cornell School short-term educational classes to learn about debt funding and things that I didn't know about.
Right.
Even at my career level, as COO, I went and learned some things because I wanted to know more and be able to talk intelligently to the bankers and to the debt funders and to asset managers about certain things. So never stop learning. And these colleges provide tremendous value. It just wasn't the path for me. It wasn't my dad. We didn't have the money for me to go. I was paying on my own, and it made more sense to go get a company car and be a district manager at a restaurant than it did to go to school. That was my thing.
The number one thing is kind of like now, put one foot in front of the other. That's it. You can keep going. Glenn?
Right. I would like to add one point about the whole college versus no college thing. I grew up in a culture where it never even was a reality, and for me, my life, to not go to college. So it never even occurred to me that was a choice. But I also, in looking back on the 70s and 80s, there was a distinct shift in our society where all of a sudden a person's value got connected to whether or not that they got a college education. And I think that's a big place where the United States went wrong. We started to devalue work with your hands. We started to devalue work in the arts. We started to devalue a lot of the things that we could be successful in life without a college education. So, Chris, I wonder if that sort of pressure, because society's telling you have to go to college, maybe that is a place where you felt some of that insecurity about your position, when the fact is there are so many great people that have not gone to college that there was no reason for them to go to college. Look at all the CEOs in the hospitality industry. You yourself included amongst them that never went to college. But there's a stigma in society about not going to college.
I was embarrassed because when I became a director, the first time I became, I don't know if it was director of rooms or whatever it was, everybody else had a degree. They went to either Cornell or and I was coming up the ranks faster. So I had to really felt like that's where I learned my management skills and consensus building, because I had people that were smarter than me because they had that degree that I didn't have, and I had to figure out how to work through that. It was very, very uncomfortable for me for a long time. And the higher I got up, the more I became uncomfortable with it, until probably, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago when I just said, I am who I am, and it's going to be who I am. I'm going down swinging as Chris Green, no college degree, and we're going to make this happen. So,
and I think what's important is it's not about the college degree. It's about being able to explain your time. So if you're a college kid thinking about it today and say, I'm not going to go to college, but if you're going to serve your mother and father's couch for 3 years, that's going to show up on a resume. So if Chris came to me and say, you came for a job, and I said, you want to be a manager? So where'd you go to school? I didn't go to school. So what'd you do? Well, I was district this, I was that, then I did this, and then I did that, and then I got promoted to this, and I got promoted to that. Done. In. Thank you. It's like, so yes, you don't have to go to college, but you can't surf the couch. You've got to do something with that time. Maybe you say, you know what? You want to be a great surfer. And you said, I spent a year to become a great surfer, and I want to know everything about surfboards, and I'm going into the surfboard business. And right now, I just need a gig as a front desk agent or whatever. Great. Fantastic. Right. What we want in this industry, what we want in any industry, is people that want to get up and do what they're hired to do. And that is what we want. If you do that, nothing else matters. And if you throw your heart over that wall, your body will follow. And that's what you did.
Well, I need 30 seconds. So I was working for a restaurant company. I was a regional manager. I don't know when this was, about 8 years into my career, and things were going great. And then that restaurant company was sold by the debt fund that held the company, a bunch of different restaurants. And all of a sudden I'm 28 and out of work and new baby on the way. And so, but I was the guy Anthony's talking about. I believed I could do anything. I knew how to show up. My dad taught me how to be early if you want to be on time. And I knew how to care for people and talk about servant leadership. So I went and applied for a job at the Hilton in Jacksonville, Florida, a director level job. And I interviewed with a guy named Mike Keeler, who's been in this business a long time. He's retired now, but he was my mentor. And halfway through the interview, I'm rattling. I'm like, this is how you do this. This is how you audit this. I know how to do this. I will be here. I will work extra. I had my family in mind, and I cared what was happening at home and taking care of them. And right in the middle of the interview, Mike goes, stop. And I swallowed. I was like, a big gulp, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I really messed this up, and I need this opportunity. And Mike said, you're hired.
Wow. And
I'll never, but then he took me under his wing and he helped take all that passion and energy and drive it somewhere. It wasn't 6 months later when I said to him, how do I get your job? He's like, kid, you've been in this business for 6 months. And I didn't matter because I believed I could do it. And I'll never forget the opportunity he gave me, but it's to Anthony's point, show up, be passionate, be always learning, and be prepared. If you got to talk about something, read, learn, look, listen. Passion can win for you.
Passion changes everything. It's on my business card.
Yep. That's right.
It'll be my tombstone, and I'm thinking about getting a tattoo right next to the one I have of Glenn's face right here.
And you're getting the one of my. Are you getting the one of my stack of poker chips from the day we played poker?
Yes, that would be great. Yeah, I got an idea for a show. David, our producer in the background. What do you think about this? Kim and Chris and Glenn, I'm asking your opinion as well. You come up with the agenda for a show, and all four of us do the show. Me and Glenn don't know the agenda. We don't know the topic of the show. And we just speak a day, and it's all four of us. And we basically, you guys host the show, and we're your guests.
So that's basically us knowing what's going on like every day, because we have
nothing different.
What do you think about that? I think that would be an interesting show. Not so much you're interviewing us, but you're giving us topics to talk about.
I really need to meet her because I've heard so many good things, both from yesterday's show. Some of my team brought it up to me, and then you guys have been raving about it. I'm excited to meet her.
So can you please send
I'll take care of this behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that. That would be great. And then you guys, David, get a date on the schedule, and let's do it. Because if you leave it to us, we won't get it done. So, David, please, thank you.
That's very accurate. All right. Chris,
For a while,
thanks,
buddy.
man. We'll see you at some point on Thursday's show when we're recording from Mohegan Sun. Thank you, Chris. Be good.
Are you okay with that? Chris, you okay with that?
Yeah, he's okay with that. He's fine with that.
You think
Yeah.
it's Chris now?
I don't know. We can bring him back in. Hold on. You all right with that? You okay?
I am okay with that.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you later. All right. Excellent. All right. So everybody out there, thank you. No, Mark, it is not my living room. I'm putting out this as kind of like Oprah's The Secret. I feel if I could achieve that, if I put it out into the universe to happen. Plus, producer Jeff just gave it to me as a background. So there's that too.
You know, it's interesting. My living room doesn't look anything like that either, but it's a pretty comfortable living room. And I really want to do the show from my living room because it's very comfortable and it's very nice aesthetically. But I can't because everybody's so loud. What a great show, bro.
Yeah, I know. You know what? This is what I love about doing the show. I have no idea what is going to happen when I hit the go live button. But it seems like all these people being open and honest and truthful and all the great participation by our audience, it feels like this is such a great session for us every single day for people to really live, learn, and love.
And what I think is important is, yes, like he would like you to use his services, right? You know, if one client comes to Chris because of the show, great. Okay, but this is not that show. This isn't Johnny Carson where you come on and you say, hey, I just came out with a movie. I just came out with a book. I'm really old. I said Johnny Carson. Jimmy Fallon, whatever. Like, this is like, yeah, everybody's got something, right? Everybody's got, like, we got Hospitality Success and, everything that you're doing. So everybody's got something, or they wouldn't be successful. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to really help and to really inspire not only the audience, but I get inspired every day on this show.
Yeah, it's great. And if I was to make a Johnny Carson reference, I would have gone back to, I think Hugh Downs was actually the first, one of the first hosts of the Tonight Show. He was only in there for a little while.
I think before Hugh Downs, I want to try to see if I'm right. The gentleman that, what was his name?
Steve Allen?
Yep, yeah.
Steve Allen was just before Johnny Carson. Did it for, I think, like a year and a half or something.
Oh, so, all right. So,
right?
So you won. All right, who's his number one guest that used to sit in for him?
Gary Shandling, I think, had the most reps back behind the scenes, and then he took over as a guest host. But as terms of just a regular guest who never did anything else?
No, guest host. Who had the number?
Well, it was Gary Shandling who turned it down. Then Joan Rivers was the permanent guest host for a really long time until she betrayed him and got her own show on Fox in like 1986. And then Jay Leno kind of got the mantle of that and was a guest host for a whole lot, and then got the show. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. There was Joan Rivers, and there was a comedian, David Brenner, that also.
Oh, David Brenner was a lot. I think he recently passed away also, like last year or so, right?
He used to play at Pips in Sheepshead Bay in Brooklyn, where every comedian in the world played. And great guy. I met him a couple times. Okay, thank you.
Let's wrap this thing up for today. All right, guys, check out our hotel reboot on refinance and reinvesting. You can buy that at any time. Go to hotelreboot.com. And of course, Anthony, you've got another big show coming up on Thursday at 3, I think it is.
3 o'clock. I kept on saying 2, but it's 3. I believe it's 3.
Yeah, I saw an ad for it today. That's how I know.
Okay, Facebook. We're going to go behind the scenes of what it takes to kind of go into a hotel, whether it be on TV or just on the fly, and really make a lot of decisions really quickly, because you don't have a lot of time, because the longer it takes to make the real clear decisions, you're wasting a lot of money. As a matter of fact, Chris's quote is sticking in my brain, but I don't have it perfectly, about, you keep worrying about the expenses and you'll get them down so where they'll take care of sales. I'll ask Chris that quote exactly, but I'm gonna put that out. That was a great quote.
All right, awesome.
So how about you? What are you doing? You doing anything
today?
I don't know. What's going on in your neck of the wood?
All right, so this is going to be really fascinating, but my sister's family is coming to spend the weekend with us. So I need to plan the menu and get all of that going, but we've got everybody's keeps kosher. There are certain vegetarians, so it's going to be very challenging for me to figure out the right menu for the entire weekend.
Do you know what? I believe in you.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And hopefully I'll come up with some good recipes and I'll get through this and the family will still like me come Sunday. All right. We'll see you all tomorrow. We got another great show for you here at 12 noon when we are going live with Michael Schindler of Four Corners Advisors. He's returning. He's been a guest on panels a lot. So we thought we'd get him on a one-on-one and really turn it to him and see what he has to say. And then Thursday, of course, we got the president of Mohegan Sun on. And then Chris will be back at the end of that show. And on Friday, another little free-form Friday just with me and you having a little chatty time there, Anthony.
Let's go, buddy.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. Remember, subscribe to our newsletter. Text the word hotel to 66866. That's the word hotel to 66866. Don't forget hospitality success. Don't forget Hotel Reboot. Love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for being here. And remember this, you've got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.